What if Mr. Puzzles was a grey Jedi? Our story begins on the Sith home planet of Korriban. Mr. Puzzles did originally have a humble, normal life as a kid, but the Sith kidnapped him thousands of years ago to be used in their Sith alchemy experiments or whatever. The endless Sith alchemy led to Mr. Puzzles slowly going insane over the years, and a couple hundred years later, although it's unknown how he managed to survive that long, Mr. Puzzles cut off his own face and replaced it with a TV, as he does in the regular SMG4 timeline. Despite being a creation and being raised by the Sith, Mr. Puzzles did not fall to the dark side fully. Instead, he used both the light and the dark side of the Force, which the Sith didn't like very much, but the Sith who raised Mr. Puzzles wouldn't really get to say anything about it, because Mr. Puzzles eventually killed all the Sith that were caring for him, or really lacked thereof caring, because, you know, the Sith will be Sithin' always. For the next millennia or so, Mr. Puzzles would watch as galactic events continued on, and he wouldn't really do much until about the time Darth Plagueis, aka Hugo the Masked II, was rising in power, with Darth Sidious, aka Sheev Palpatine, by his side. As Sidious and Plagueis made plans for the upcoming proxy war, Mr. Puzzles would be secretly keeping an eye on everything that went on, including the cloning process that they duped Dooku and Psycho-Dyas into helping with, of which later Dooku would kill off Psycho-Dyas, and the events of the prequel trilogy play out, but yeah, Mr. Puzzles was secretly keeping an eye on all of that, because Mr. Puzzles, he had plans of his own to create clones of himself, and I mean, that was going to be very difficult for Mr. Puzzles to do, you know, him being a Force sensitive and all, but he was keeping an eye on what Palpatine was doing, so whatever Palpatine knew, Mr. Puzzles knew. Mr. Puzzles' stalking of Palpatine would eventually lead him to Mount Tantus on the planet of Wayland, where Mr. Puzzles would inadvertently see the works of Project Necromancer, which, little to his knowledge, was essentially the effort just to have Palpatine be kept alive for all eternity, which Mr. Puzzles would eventually sneak around and do a little investigating so he could use the studies for his own benefit. While this is very Sith-like behavior, Mr. Puzzles was raised by the Sith for a long time, and although he never fully surrendered to the dark side per se, he did have some dark side tendencies, which led to him making some rather rash decisions at times, but beside that, for now, Mr. Puzzles would get all the intel he needed on how to clone himself multiple times over, and well, eventually he'd use that for his own benefit, but not right now. That'd be later on. Oh, but for now, Mr. Puzzles had his own plans, his own very original plans to make a stunning, most spectacular 5-star holo video for all the galaxy to view, and no one would oppose him. Or so he thought, because you see, Palpatine knew that Mr. Puzzles was stalking him. However, what Palpatine didn't know is that it was Mr. Puzzles. He just knew that someone was stalking him this entire time, and so he personally sent a clone assassin after Mr. Puzzles, and this clone assassin would follow orders without question, soon finding Mr. Puzzles on Coruscant. However, this would prove to be the clone assassin's undoing, as Mr. Puzzles would use his Force abilities for the first time in over 500 years. See, while Mr. Puzzles was no fully fledged Sith Lord, Mr. Puzzles did know how to use Force lightning, and to a certain extent could control electricity using that force lightning, but for the purposes of this scene, Mr. Puzzles absolutely fried this clone assassin to death, and well, Palpatine was pissed. Mr. Puzzles knew that if he didn't get off of Coruscant, either clones or Palpatine's enforcer Darth Vader would surely get to him in a matter of time, so Mr. Puzzles decided to move into the Outer Rim, specifically in Hutt space, and even more specifically onto Nal Hutta, where Mr. Puzzles would spend the next few years creating his 5-star TV show, or more accurately, what he would think to be a 5-star TV show. And well, not many others would like that TV show, but the Hutts loved it for some reason. But Mr. Puzzles didn't care about the reason. He just knew that he got a audience who loves his show, and so he continued to produce more TV shows. Soon, Mr. Puzzles and the Hutts would get into a mutually beneficial agreement where the Hutts would be supplied with more TV shows from Mr. Puzzles himself, while Mr. Puzzles got enough funding to not only create his TV shows, but do whatever else he wanted to do, which is why he would get the funding to start a cloning project of his own on the side, where, well, this was essentially Project Necromancer 2.0, but, instead of Mr. Puzzles wanting to rule over a galaxy forever, like Palpatine did, Mr. Puzzles wanted to create TV shows forever. Didn't matter for who, or for what, but Mr. Puzzles wanted to create TV shows forever, so he got started on what was essentially Project Necromancer 2.0. Mr. Puzzles' Project Necromancer 2.0 would also go on to benefit the Hutts, as they would get pretty much infinite TV shows for all of time. Even when Mr. Puzzles eventually died off, he would just essence transfer into another clone. Except unlike with Palpatine's, which failed, Mr. Puzzles' clones, who were not enriched with the dark side, kept on going for their natural lifespans, and Mr. Puzzles would only have to switch bodies like every 100 years at most, and it was a good life for Mr. Puzzles, but then someone had to just ruin all of his plans. That being said though, Mr. Puzzles' plans being foiled wasn't even an intentional play by who Mr. Puzzles would later find out was the New Republic, as by this time the Empire had already been wiped out completely. But yeah, the New Republic while dealing with an Imperial remnant, they accidentally bombed Mr. Puzzles' cloning facilities, which well, Mr. Puzzles wasn't happy about, because he was down to his last body, and he didn't exactly have the credits to continue doing his cloning projects by this point, and so Mr. Puzzles was pissed at the New Republic, so inevitably he would try and get the Hutts to help him in his endeavor of getting back at the New Republic, but the Hutts weren't having any of it, and the Hutts just killed Mr. Puzzles and used his TV head to watch TV for all of eternity. So you've made it to the end of the video. Congratulations on that, and like and subscribe if you want to see more What If videos, or any of my other videos, like Menace Files, latest out of that was Sergeant Johnson, or any of my gaming videos that I don't really release that often anymore. But if you want to see the gaming videos I have released, like and subscribe, and well, yeah, that's it for me, I guess. I'll see you guys in the next video.